viewers, my name is VIDELIZ NJOKI and that is my sign name. Welcome back to the Voice Show. I know it's been a long time from the previous show, but the previous show was somehow very emotional. I'm hoping this one we will not be emotional or sad. Maybe. I hope you have nothing. But remember, before we start, we have Deaf Awareness Month, this month of September. And remember, our theme is access to communication. I believe we can get basic knowledge, ideas in how to access information and ensure when you go somewhere there's a deaf community, you must maybe communicate through signs or lip reading, depends with what one, because it varies with the deaf person. Now, hold on. We have our visitor today. Is it possible you introduce yourself and maybe tell us your name?
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, my name is Wilson Nyabera, and I work in the IT department.
Now, speaking about IT, can you tell us about your sign name? Does it mean you don't have a sign name?
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. So my sign name, that is my
yes.
sign name, Wilson.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Before we continue,
Yes, as I was saying before, I design programs that is in IT, meaning that most of my work is customer focused. I also, for example, this includes offering internet services, and if maybe an office needs to develop their internet connectivity, that's what I offer. Might be Safaricom and Airtel, different
now you can
internet
see
providers. I
you
do
can
that.
get somebody here, because I know sometimes people have issues with Wi-Fi, wondering, I'm going to call somebody because I'm stuck. Now we are lucky. We have an IT expert here with us. Okay. When you speak about IT, people think that this is a very hard course. Now, yourself, how did you even start it?
Yes, it's true that when people think of IT, they think it's difficult, but it's really not difficult. For me, what has helped me is the interest I had, because in high school I always had a dream
Wow.
of pursuing IT, and that means I had to pick
Now
physics
you
as a
see,
subject.
physics, you see?
Yes, physics and mathematics were core. And then in my outside life, first of all, I did computer basics. I learned that, and that really opened up my mind, and it helped me a lot to understand better. Because you see, the mathematics, it was really, the basic level is really simple. And then for 3 months I continued learning IT in the laboratory, practicing. And what I learned in school was also what I applied in the job market. How to configure internet, and majorly I focused on configuration, and that was the basics. I didn't do in a really in-depth study of it. After that,
What? You
I finished
passed?
my
You
studies
see?
and I passed. Now after finishing that, I decided to start looking for a job. I got a couple of offers, picked one, went for the interview, and when I started working, I was a little bit worried about the communication aspect, if there was going to be barrier. But on reaching there, it was normal. There wasn't a very big problem, because there wasn't need for even much interaction, because most of our works is hand-on, is what you see, what you do, and that's what I continued doing. everything I learned in college, I applied it in the job market as well. IT is not really difficult. It all depends with your interests. And mathematics is key and physics. And after
Well,
that, you're free to go on
remember, me,
with
I
your
got
pursuit.
an E in mathematics. E. I hated mathematics in high school. I want to know, let me apologize, but let us look at something, a little review. Before we speak about IT, or before you even start signing, are you an interpreter? Are you deaf? And number two, is it possible you share with us a story about yourself? How you joined a school? Did you go directly, or you were lucky to find a hearing or a deaf school right before you join IT? Take us back and explain a little bit.
Okay, so first of all, in high school,
You were born deaf? You mean you were born deaf?
no.
Oh,
I wasn't
okay,
born deaf.
okay.
I was born hearing. And then later on, when I was 5 years old, it happened that I became sick. I had meningitis,
Okay,
and that
okay.
is
Wait a minute.
what now caused the deafness.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Now, when you became deaf, how did your family behave? Did they accept it? Did they live in denial?
Okay, so the very first time I remember when I became deaf, my family cried a lot. Many were worried about, how my future was going to be, the interaction. So they did cry a lot. For a couple of months, I think it was 1 month I was admitted. My family was, by my side complaining. And then my father decided to,
You
look for a
applied
school
in a
where I
hospital
got
and then you went to look for a
to
school,
join.
or what do you mean?
No. When I was in the hospital, when I was admitted, after I became now deaf, the meningitis had, caused the deafness. So you see, we had not known, and they hadn't known of us. Cool. So at first, my parents still helped me search for a different
So they were saying
hospital
you
to
must
get,
hear.
things like the hearing aid to help. And when I was between those ages, I could talk a little bit, I could communicate a little bit with my family. Then when now I
So
went to,
meaning
the
the
deaf
school
school,
made you
then
dumb.
I stopped talking. Because you see, the deaf influenced me because most of the things we were communicating through sign language. And when I went back home, my family started getting concerned because now, my ability to talk was kind of, it was dialed down. I wasn't doing that. Because you see, in the school, we wouldn't talk, we'd sign. And I think my parents had not yet fully accepted my condition. But later on, moving on, I believe they came to accept it.
You are lucky you joined a school direct.
Yes, I went
You
directly
went
to a deaf
direct
school.
to a
I
deaf
didn't
school.
join a hearing
Wow.
school.
Wow. Then your parents must be very rich and they accessed information very fast. In that, in a very short span of time, they were able to get a school for you. Now, how did it go about? You were lucky?
No,
Okay,
no,
does
no,
it
no.
mean your
The deaf
parents were
school
living
was
near a deaf
far.
school, or how did you get the information? How did
I
you get
think
that school? How did
maybe
they know that the
it
school
was
was having deaf
a
students?
family friend who told them, because there in Vihiga, we didn't have a deaf school. So I believe they were told where to get the school. I didn't know. My parents didn't know about Kerugoya. They didn't know about, ca- they didn't know about Machakos. So I had to, now be moved to go to to join the deaf school. And when I asked my father where it was, he only said that a friend of his had told him. And there, before I thought I was the only deaf person, but there I was happy to get
Hey,
many other deaf people who
wait a
interacted
minute.
with very well.
Wait a minute. Now, speaking about your life in school, you becoming sick, being admitted. When you
At
joined a
first, I
deaf
really
school,
cried.
how
I
did that
cried a
make you
lot
feel?
because you see, I wanted to go back, with my family
Ah,
and stay with my
crying.
family. Because you
Wilson,
see,
why were you
I had
crying?
been used to staying near my family, and now the shift, I felt like I was thrown away. Yeah, I was disposed.
So you felt like your parents have thrown you.
Yeah, yeah, because
Now, Wilson, before you even start crying, viewers, don't worry. The story is becoming so sweet and very interesting. But for now, let us have a short break. We shall be back soon. But remember, we have Deaf Awareness Month, and the theme is accessing communication. Welcome back. Remember, initially, we were with Wilson, who was crying, felt like the parents had abandoned him. Ah, now you're saying that you felt bad, like somebody had disowned you, and you're only a child. Now, here, no baba, no mama, you are all alone. Now, how was your life in school? At the same time, tell us about how your high school was.
yeah, which are we
Both,
talking
both,
about,
both
primary
primary
or high
school
school?
and high school.
Yeah, so primary was basically the first time I joined primary school. I was always alone most of the time because I wasn't without my parents were back at home and there wasn't a lot of interaction. So I decided to accept the situation because I knew through the communication that would, through sign language that would help me develop. Because remember at home, there wasn't communication. I was always silent because my parents hadn't learned, sign language. But when I was in school, I learned ABCs, how to sign one to numbers, and I will take back that knowledge back at home and through my parents seeing me signing, they'd be interested and I'd teach them the little I had gotten from school. I'd go back to school, continue learning more sign language until now it became very easy for me, to sign. And after that, I also went to high school, and our high school was an integrated school. We had both students who are hearing and students who are deaf. So we'd eat the same place, and with the dorms were separate. Our dorms were separate. We had the hearing dorms, and then we had the dorms for the students who are deaf. In class, we were joined together, we'd interact together, we were taught together. The subjects were the same, there was no different subject, and we'd interact, use sign language, but most of the time we used ASL, not KSL, because see, there was a variation of very many signs in the class, and this will bring confusion. So they decided maybe I'd be signing KSL, another will be signing ASL, and then maybe they'd think, I'm lying, or where have you gotten? They'd ask, where is this sign from? So due to the variations in the signs, we'd use KSL, and that during that time, KSL hadn't spread a lot, so we'd do a mixture of ASL. Our teachers would use ASL and KSL. It was after school that I realized that KSL was more known and more used than ASL. But remember, back in school, it was mostly ASL, and it was not until I left high
Maybe
school
you're
that I
wondering
forgot about
and
the
thinking
ASL.
about ASL and KSL. Maybe you're wondering what's the difference. ASL, sorry, KSL is Kenyan Sign Language and ASL is American Sign Language. And there is a small variation between the two because each country has got its own sign language, and that is why for us we use KSL. So sometimes you pick something, you change, and we have some other places where people change almost everything. And people say, you have to respect my country, you have to respect my language. Now, when you close school, you say you used to enjoy your school life. Now, I want to know, how was your life outside school, especially when you finished high school? I know you felt safe, you could communicate with the deaf so well. For now, when you went outside school, how was life like? Now you've joined IT. How were you even? How are you communicating with people around you?
Okay. So when I was done with the school, remember I was in Kiambu. That's where I was in school. Then I moved and I decided to look for a college, and the college information I got through, the information from the society, from the deaf who were around, and my parents, before used to ask me what I want to become, a teacher, but I didn't want to do those. I decided to stick to what I had learned in high school, the computer, and that's what I knew, and I wanted to pursue that. So in college, we had a lecturer, he was hearing, and now we needed an interpreter for me. So he would lecture, and the interpreter would interpret and explain the concepts to me. They knew I was deaf. So I would go to class until like midday, and then later on in the afternoon, I'd go to interact with the other deaf, different seminars. We'd discuss about life. Because you see, in school, it was normal classes, but outside now, outside school, one had to look for something to do. Life wasn't normal. You had to look for a career. I thought of fashion and, you know, different things, but society, the perspective of society about those. So before then, when I was still in school, it was kind of like I was being breastfed because my parents would give me everything. But now school was done. All that was up. Now I had to fend for myself. There was a lot of challenges. I was looking for work, stressed, looking for work, trying to do, different odd jobs here and there to get something. Because when I was in school, life was easy, simple. Everything I needed, I got. But coming out of school, I have to admit that gave me a lot of headache because now I had to fend for myself. But after that, I continued learning with school, and then I moved on to, Bondo University, which I paid for from my own pocket. Because remember, with the work I was doing before, I could save some money with the goal that this will help me pay for my further education. And I got a diploma in IT. And after I finished that, I applied for work where I got work in a company where it was it was only the hearing people who were there, and I was the only deaf person. So the only way we'd communicate was through, writing. At that time, they hadn't employed or hired an interpreter yet, and it took quite some time. Now the only challenge was that during the meetings, during the departmental conferences and workshops, that's where I'd have a problem because I wouldn't get any information. So I decided to talk to the HR to, help me solve this issue, and they did actually. They employed an interpreter, and the interpreter will help me, during the meetings and other group work stuff. But the interpreter was not only interpreting; they too had other duties assigned to them. So this made, the interaction with even the hearing colleagues a little bit easier, and I got more friends. Now the only challenge sometimes came when customers came and they'd see me and they'd worry how I would manage, and I'll try to explain. My boss they'd question me, flood me with questions. I'd try to explain and even call my boss to try and, explain to the customer, but the customer would still not be satisfied. It was at this time that I decided better not continue speaking, better not continue explaining myself, and let my work speak for itself. And later on, the first customer, second customer, third customer I served, and that's how it continued. They saw I had the skill, and it spread, and they told others. Before, you see, I didn't have many clients, maybe 2 or 3, but right now I had over 30 customers who I was serving, over 30 customers who knew me. But before that, I used to worry because I had very few, 1, 2, or 3. But now that they had seen my skill and they'd seen my expertise, then the information had spread.
I can see you had a hard time and challenges in the hearing community. Oh, well, I agree. Sometimes that is why we have the voice show where we show our abilities and the different capabilities that we have. Can you imagine, for example, you see me, it's maybe the first time and you start judging me. How now? How now? Wait and see my actions and my job before you start judging me. Huh? So we can see Wilson was, the company that has employed Wilson was patient and understanding, because I can imagine someone looking at you and wondering, how are you going to work and you're deaf? So wait, you see my work, and then later you can give me your feedback. Because you can imagine, not once, not twice. Okay, for now, you said that you have more than IT. Now, you being deaf, how has it affected you?
Yes, there are a couple. So I remember one time, yes, there are customers with, negative, I've had negative experiences with customers. And before that, when customers used to give me those negative feedback, I'd be very disappointed because remember, maybe for example, something had happened wrong in the office. Maybe a customer would come, criticizing me. Maybe it wasn't my fault. Maybe it was another colleague or a different department that had the problem. But now they wouldn't know that. They will come directly to me. Maybe there was an internet issue, an internet connection had been lost. They'd always come to me. You are the deaf who is destroying, the connection. You are destroying the internet, and they'd really, you know, really hurl insults at me, and this will really stress me a lot. But I remembered to be patient. I'd I'd ask them where the problem was. I'd try to solve them. I'd try to explain to them the situation, but they'd still insist that it was me. So, and you see, without solving the problem, I believe next time they wouldn't even come to back to me to to offer their services, and that will trickle down to other customers as well. This maybe there was one customer with negative attitude. Some were positive. There were different characters. Some who didn't have patience. Some were understanding. Some were courteous enough, and some wanted service offered to them very fast. So it was a mixture of customers. So, but I didn't want to give up despite all these negative experiences,
Wow,
and I
Wilson
continued with my
has said
patience
it
and continued.
about 3 different points. Sometimes you can care, sometimes you can choose to solve the situation, and it also varies with the attitude. Now, I want to request you, Wilson, can you send a message to our viewers? Or maybe somebody who is deaf and is watching, probably is motivated in different areas, or they are looking for a job. What message would you give them?
Okay, so I'd probably like to advise the deaf that Number one, first you have to develop, the interest, the goal and the dream that you had, that you can succeed. Second of all, you have to get the skills to join the workforce. Also, stop the mentality of asking for help. Yourself. You have to develop the skills. You know what you've learned, and that will help you, succeed. And also, you have to become confident in the skills that you've achieved. Also, sometimes when customers come, trying to discriminate you, you have to stand up for yourself, because you have your own rights. You have to, try and communicate and how to solve the issue. And sometimes, there are customers who don't like, the texting, a lot of communication through writing. So I think that's why it is important for your company to, employ an interpreter to help with the communication and to smoothen things out. Also, maybe in school, you want to, learn something, and you want to follow a specific path, a goal. Do not deter from your path. Yes, there must be challenges. There's always challenges in life, but you should not give up. There's nothing easy. There's a lot of hard work. There are bosses who have negative attitude. Some are good, some oppress. There are different attitudes, but remember, you have to stand up for yourself, and you also have to interact with people better, and also you have to communicate well.
Now, viewers, I'm sure you've heard it well. Sometimes you wonder, how is your future going to be? But you've seen the advice is clear. Have skills, number one. Number two, defend and advocate for yourself. Fight for yourself. And number three, always know what you want and follow your passion. The three. And when you do an application, make sure you fight for yourself. Say you can, not always having stress, but ensure you show the skills that you have. I'm saying this because that is why we have the voice show. Thank you so much, Wilson. Do you have a final word you would tell our viewers? Maybe Deaf Awareness Month, what would you tell them?
Happy International Deaf Awareness Month. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, viewers. Bye bye.